Good morning. Welcome to yet another epic TEDx event. So in keeping with our theme of Continuum, that first song was entitled Throwback. It's something I wrote a number of years ago when I was out in Eastern Europe, and I had a couple days off in Vienna, and that song came to mind. And I guess the reason why I was thinking about it was because at the time, there's a lot of old stuff in Vienna, obviously, right? So I was feeling somewhat nostalgic, and it felt criminal if I left there without writing something. And so the inspiration for that song came through, well, one person in particular, which is the great Kenny Garrett, jazz saxophonist. By a round of applause, anyone know that name, Kenny Garrett? All right, cool. The rest of y'all, go ahead and Google him. And the other was all of the fantastic musicians that came out of New York City in the really the entire 1990s. Oh, we got some New York folks in here? Where y'all at? Okay, New Yorkers over here, apparently. Maybe East Coast, West Coast, is that the deal? So, you know, as a kid, I went to Grant High School initially, but the program sucked for music back then. So I went to Wilson, right? That's what I'm talking about, Trojans. What's up? So, however, it also meant that jazz band was at 7 a.m., which means I had to leave my house no later than 6 a.m. to get to jazz band rehearsal 5 days a week. And so, as a result, what kept me entertained on the bus was the records that these fantastic musicians were putting out back in the 1990s. And so that sort of informs the back of my mind in regards to how I think about music and how I want my band to sound. So that's the background on Throwback. So, all right, go ahead, clap for that. All right, so in transition to the next song, I want to drop a little music wisdom on you, if you will. So here's how this goes. If you were to ask any well-seasoned musician what a good objective definition of music is, they'll probably tell you something that sounds like organized sound in time. So I say if it's organized, it's on purpose. And if it's on purpose, it's for a purpose. Therefore, what is the meaning of your sound? Okay? Said in non-musical terms, it ain't what you say, it's how you sound when you say what you say that actually matters. And a perfect example of this is, you know this if you have children. For some reason, you know if your kid, even though they can't talk yet as newborn babies, you can tell if they need to be changed, if it's a real cry, if it's like a manipulative cry. They've said nothing to you, but somehow your ear understood what the meaning of the sound is. So you have emotion, you have sound, and then you have data, right? And so this next song, I think, is going to do a really good job of sort of articulating this as, in order for this song to work, this next one that you're about to hear, it really has to be about sound, because data itself ain't going to get the job done. So the main character here is going to be my man John on saxophone. Give it up for John Nastos real quick on saxophone. And so he's going to kind of function like a traffic cop, if you will, okay? So this next song is entitled Eloo's Crown. I wrote this for two people. One is a great piano player out of New York City that I met a number of years ago named Eric Lewis, who goes by Eloo. And then the other person is actually Portland's own Esperanza Spalding. If you all, right? Back in 2012, she came out with a record called Radio Music Society, and there's a song on there called Crowned and Kissed. And so I kind of grabbed a couple little musical fragments from that and meshed it with some things I've heard Eric play over the years. So here's Eloo's Crown. Where's that shoulder thing again? That was fun, huh? So it wouldn't be fitting if I didn't take advantage of this platform to highlight my father, Mel Brown. Because when we think about the idea of continuum, there's a before, there's a present, and then there's a future. And so I wouldn't be where I am, I wouldn't be half the person I am without my father having been my primary inspiration. And how I'll put it, let's say it like this. This next song's entitled Taking Time to Think. What I want you to think about is all the people that you've interacted with that have sort of downloaded their wisdom into you, that has helped to accentuate the best parts of you. But it's not just that. At the same token, everyone in this room has also been pouring into other people as well, whether you realize it or not. And like they say, with great power comes great responsibility. But like one of our prior speakers said, sometimes we need to take time to even process things. And so when you give yourself a little bit of space to think about these ideas, I find that you tend to make better choices. And so oftentimes when I find myself stuck not knowing what to do, I think, well, what would my father do, right? And it ends up, it grounds me. It absolutely centers me. And so my hope is that on this song, y'all get all the fills. If I can get some crying out of y'all, that'd be great. And I'll give you a big hug, and we can decompress later, and we'll talk about it. But seriously, thank you, David, for offering this to me. And offering this to the city of Portland. Give it up for Ted one more time. And so before we start this song, I want to introduce the guys in the band. Like I said, on saxophone, you got John Nastos. On bass, the great Garrett Baxter. And as I like to say, my day one of day one since day one, my man Greg Goebel on the piano. 22 years together. So here's to another 22 years, my friend. So again, you guys have been fantastic. I think the day's just getting started, right? So hope you guys enjoy this song, and I hopefully get a chance to talk to as many of you as I can when this all ends. So again, thank you. Thank you.